Hey there, quilting friends. Welcome back to the cabin. My name is Penny D'Amicis. I'm the head designer at Cabin Quilters. Today I want to talk to you about a cautionary tale and how I've solved this problem for myself forever. Have you ever purchased the perfect color for a two-color quilt? All the white, all the red or blue or whatever color you've chosen. You've gotten all the fabrics that you need. You get home, you start cutting out the pattern, you make a mistake, and you find out you don't have enough fabric to finish the quilt. Oh my gosh. And God help you if you purchased it 10 years ago, because as you know, all of us quilters, we buy fabric and then we make that project right away. So if you want to find out how I've solved this problem forever for myself, why don't you stick around? Well, hey gang, thanks for sticking with me, and let's take a look at this beautiful quilt. This is part of my trellis rose quilt. Got a little bit of black on it, but it's mostly a red and white quilt, all the same fabric. And let's talk about what happened when I went to make this quilt. So I definitely wanted to make a beautiful red and white quilt, and I couldn't wait, and I went out and purchased the perfect fabric. Let's take a look at what I got here. You can see that I got a beautiful texturized foliage, red, and this beautiful snow fairy frost to start this quilt. Now I was really excited. I sat down to work on it and I accidentally made a missed cut. And unfortunately, because I purchased the fabric about 2 years prior, you know, I could always get enough of the fairy frost snow, but I wasn't able to find any more of this red. And now with nofabric.com and everything, it can be even more difficult to find that fabric. Well, I solved this problem for myself years ago. And how I wound up solving it is I never, ever, ever again use one fabric in my two-color quilt. As a matter of fact, I don't use one of the same fabric in anything anymore. Now, you may know that I am known for scrap quilting. I do a tremendous amount of things with scraps, but I also have changed the way my entire stash is put together, and I can do a subsequent video on that as well. But one of the things that I like to do is if I'm going to make a red and white quilt, let's say I'm going to make this quilt again, instead of going out and buying exactly the right amount of fabric to make this red quilt, what I'm going to do is go to the store and purchase, I don't know, 5 or 10 different beautiful reds. I'm going to make my quilt out of all of those different reds. I can pre-wash them, not pre-wash them, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to make sure that I'm using lots and lots of reds. And many of you might say, well, how do you make them all match? Well, okay, that's another little topic we need to get into, is that 4-letter word. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Match is not a 4-letter word, it's a 5-letter word, and that's true, but in quilting, I think it's a 4-letter word. I never use the word match. I use the word coordinate. Now, why do I do that? Well, I cannot tell you the number of times, and I know you've seen this, where you've gone to a quilt shop to go pick out fabric, and someone, either in your party, someone you don't know, or even you, has taken a fabric and matched it to a focus fabric or a focus floral, trying so hard to get that project right. You find the right color, but it doesn't have the right pattern. You find the right pattern, but you don't think it has the right color, and you've had to carry it outside of the store into the sunlight because you just can't judge whether it's exactly the right match. And that's why I never use match ever again. See, the thing is, when you're looking at florals, they have lots of different shades and tones because in nature, even looking at the same leaf, there are so many different shades in the same leaf that you get focused sometimes on the exact match. So I like to coordinate fabrics, and I'm going to show you a couple of the results of that. This first quilt I'm going to show you is not exactly a complete scrap quilt, but it kind of turned out that way. So here is my beautiful leaf quilt. I'll do the best to show you and still be able to hear. Let's look at it on the table. Oh my gosh, look at this beautiful quilt. So this one's been washed and worn 100 times. Let me tell you how this started. So this was actually a fabric exchange with some of my fellow quilters. We pull it down a little bit and show you a few of the blocks. We started with some beautiful fall fabrics, and you can see some of these greens are much lighter than the others. How about these oranges over here going into burgundy red? And the rule of thumb when we were building these blocks was you had to have a stem, and then you had to sort of ombre your block, and it really didn't matter whether it was a true ombre or it just had to have a mixture of different fabrics. So let's say you chose orange. So in this case, someone chose this deep orange. They chose a slightly lighter brick orange, a really light peach, and down here an almost burgundy fabric for the bottom. And look how beautiful those fabrics blend. Let's look at another one. Oh my gosh, here's a beautiful green leaf. And this one, again, is 4 different fabrics. Here's a lighter stem. Here's a grassy green. This one's about the same tone, but is a different print than this one. And then we have this dark olive green to make the stem. And if you look at this quilt, all around the quilt, you're gonna see the same thing. We had to use a background and 4 different fabrics to create our leaf. And people got very creative with their creations. Let's see another one over here. Here's one where someone started with peach, went to a lighter peach, then almost a, gosh, I don't know, like a rosy brown, and then a deep brown. That's how they divided their colors. So what's really cool about this particular quilt was it forced me to have to coordinate fabrics. Some people, you can tell, tried to stay in the same color vein and make their leaf about all the same, but let me show you what I did with my block. Gang, let's take a look. I made 2 blocks for this quilt, and I want to show you which ones mine were. Now, I built a block out of teal, and look at my leaf. My leaf is definitely a teal leaf. I didn't do a lot of ombre, but you can see I have this deep teal, a slightly lighter green teal, something with a lot more blue in it, and then this definite turquoise here at the top. And I just really love this. And also what was different about it is some people had peach leaves, some had orange leaves, but quite a few of us did purple and teal, and it just started to look really wondrous. And then here's my other leaf, which was purple. And you can see I started with this deep plum and then went out to the different colors here in the rest of the leaf. Pretty cool, huh? How we mixed and matched a lot of different fabrics. Some were coordinated from the same colors. Some didn't have the same colors at all. They were just all mixed and matched. And what has resulted is something that I think is truly spectacular. Now, one thing also I want to tell you about this quilt is the original pattern called for putting all the leaves together and then having this really elaborate vine border all around the outside with little leaves coming off of it. And this quilt wound up in my UFO, my unfinished object pile, for quite a while because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do for that vine border. So years later, I saw a quilter who was in the same quilt exchange, because a lot of us divided and gave away some of these blocks, and she just stuck her quilt together, and it gave me, 1, permission to finish it differently than the original pattern, and 2, it gave me a really great idea on how I wanted to finish it. Which brings me to my next point. Let's go back and look at this quilt. Now remember, it had sashing between all of the blocks. And do you notice something interesting about the sashing? Well, it's a bunch of 2.5-inch squares. I didn't know how I wanted to finish this quilt. And finally I decided, instead of having these beautiful blocks be just sitting in a pack somewhere, I would actually sew them together into a quilt that I could use. And the thing is, I didn't coordinate a fabric or match a fabric to go with them all. I did go to the quilt store and I looked around for something, didn't find anything I liked, and just decided, you know what? This is an opportunity to dig into all of your stash, cut out a couple of 2.5-inch strips, and make it all work. So what I did was exactly that. I went into my green pile and found 5 green strips. I went into my teal pile and found 5 teal strips, and into my rust pile and found 5 rust strips, and so on and so on and so on. And what I did is created a whole lot of colored strip sets with different colors that coordinated together. And those became all the sashing strips for this beautiful project. Now I'm going to show it to you one more time, and you tell me what you think. Is that the easiest way to get the most beautiful color? I mean, it's so much more interesting than picking all of the same red or all of the same blue or all of the same brown. It's just beautiful, and it is an explosion of color. And the best part is I didn't plan it at all. It was a happy little accident, kind of like Bob Ross's happy little trees. So let me show you another little technique, because you might be really amazed. So I know I told you that I am the designer of the All Scrapped Out series, and here is just one of those beautiful scrappy quilts in that book. And I'm going to put this one in front of the camera so you can see it as well. So look at this beautiful print here. Now this is a Christmas print that I found in my stash. I have no idea why I bought it, which is pretty much all of my stash, but it had a definite Christmas feel. It has a little bit of green shading, it has some gold, it's got a definite red. It actually has a little bit of that baby blue in it as well, but we're going to ignore that part. And I decided I was going to put all of gold, red, and green scraps together to create this beautiful quilt. And then here's another example of why coordinating your fabrics is so much better than matching them. So as you can see here with this strip, this is a green diamond made out of 3 different fabrics of green. And I can have, here's another diamond that has 4 different colors of green. They're all coordinating together, and they're all auditioning with this border beautifully. And I'll do another video on how I go about auditioning these fabrics. Same thing with my red strips. If you look at my red part of this quilt, you can see that I have multiple fabrics here that I put into this block. This one is 3 different colors. Here's another one here that's 3 different colors, and you can see I'm not even really picky about what kind of genre they come from either. This is a beautiful sort of a color wall basic, and this one's a deep brick, sort of a grayed out. This one is a thimbleberries. It doesn't really matter. Let's look at another one real quick. So here's a block that I put together with 4 different reds, and this one even has a bright cherry red. This one has a stripe, a brick red with black. It doesn't matter. You can put all of these things together. I'm going to back up and hold the quilt up again so you can see it. So here it is. What do you think? I think it coordinates pretty amazingly. And what I want to tell you is just think about that next time you're going to the store and you're thinking about how you want to put your quilt together. And this works even if you're finding some sort of focus fabric, whether it be a children's print, a novelty print, a beautiful floral. You don't even have to buy all the coordinating fabrics from the line. So that is how I've changed the whole entire way of putting together, piecing, and buying fabric for a quilt. And it does make a much more colorful and much more interesting project. Now, I hope that you learned a little bit from this video today. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. Tell YouTube you love this video. As always, if you're not subscribed, think about subscribing to help support the channel, and hit that notification bell so you're notified when new videos are up. And until next time, dig around in that bin, dig around in that stash, mix up your colors, and by all means, have a happy time quilting.